Today we're going to be grading the Phillies' performances through May, and we're going to grade them on an A to F scale, so pretty basic. And I'll read some of the stats, and we're going to start with starting pitching. So, starting off with Zach Wheeler, he has a 6-2 record this year, a 2.96 ERA with 94 strikeouts. Now, he's been super consistent, and he had one bad start against the Braves, but I feel like you can't give him anything but an A, so we're going to give him an A. With Jesus Luzardo, he's 5-1, 3.58 ERA, 81. He had one bad start, which just tanked his ERA, but he has been a very consistent pitcher this year, and he's been really good, so I feel like you cannot give him anything except an A. He has exceeded expectations and done great outside of one start. Moving on to Aaron Nola, he has not been good with a 6.11 ERA, and he's a 1-7 with only 52 strikeouts. He struggled big time. He has really struggled. It sucks to see one of my favorite players struggle. I have to give him an F just because he's been terrible this year. He's had only a few good starts, and I'm really hoping he can bounce back. He's going to recover from some injury, but we'll see how it goes. Moving to Christopher Sanchez, he has been solid with a 4-1 record, a 3.32 ERA, and 70 strikeouts. I'm going to give him a B+, because I feel like he would be a number 2 on most teams in the MLB. I think the Phillies are the deepest starting rotation in the league, but he's just so consistent. He consistently gives you quality starts, and he's really all you want. It's crazy to think that he's the 3rd or 4th best pitcher on this roster behind Wheeler, Luzardo, and Suarez. Speaking of Ranger Suarez, he has a 2.97 ERA with a 4-0 record and 31 strikeouts. And after a bad first start and missing a lot of the year, he has been nothing short of incredible. Rough loss against the Brewers yesterday, not really his fault at all, but he has been dialed in and he's been exciting to watch. He is just an exciting to watch pitcher. I'm going to give him an A because he's just so consistent, and it would be a big mistake if the Phillies traded him, though I know they probably have to. Going on to Taijuan Walker, I'm giving a B+. He has a 3.53 ERA with only a 2-4 record, 39 strikeouts, but he has been so valuable with this team, especially with Nola's injury. He's been able to step in and do solid after going to the bullpen. He started off strong, but he has been the biggest improvement out of a Philly. Moving on to the bullpen, we're starting with Jose Alvarado. He obviously gets an F since he got caught cheating. And this was a big blow for the Phillies as he was their top reliever, and he really let the team down. Obviously, brought bad vibes to probably most people in the clubhouse. Though he was doing solid beforehand, too, and obviously downfall of the Phillies' bullpen is they're not a very good bullpen. Moving on to Tanner Banks, he's probably the number 4 guy in their bullpen right now. He's got a 3.81 ERA with 31 strikeouts, and he did get a save that clutch game against the A's. He's a solid number 4 reliever, as I said. He shouldn't be a number 4 arm in the pen. He should be about a 6 or 7 arm. But he's really stepped into his own this year and has been pretty solid, and has even come into some clutch. Moving on to Carlos Hernandez, he's probably the worst pitcher in the Phillies bullpen with a 6.14 ERA. He's pitched 22 innings and only 20 strikeouts. He's not a high-leverage guy. He's the number 7 guy in the bullpen. He's like the mop-up reliever. And I feel like there's got to be someone better in the Phillies farm system. So he gets a D, even though he doesn't have high expectations. Most of the time, he's only had like 1 or 2 decent outings, like this one against the Rays. But he needs to do better. Moving on to Ryan Kerkering, he gets a B, which is actually tied the highest for the Phillies bullpen because the Phillies bullpen is not very good. He has a 3.18 ERA with 19 strikeouts. He's become the Phillies' 7th inning reliever and has gotten a lot better over the course of the season, and I think he could be the Phillies' best reliever by the end of the year. He continues to improve, and he could eventually end up being a closer, maybe not for the Phillies, but for any team because he has very high potential. Now, Joe Ross, he's pitched 28 innings with a 4.50 ERA. He's kind of another mop-up guy. Dealt with some injuries this year. He's just not very consistent. He gets a C. Moving on to Romano, he gets a B-. because he had a really rough start to the year, but he has really picked it up. Obviously, ERA can't really tell a lot from relief pitchers because one bad inning blows up, though he's had a couple bad outings. But 7.36 ERA still is not very good, but he's been a lot better. So he gets a B minus plus 29 strikeouts, and if he continues to get better, he can be a real weapon for the Phillies. Moving on to Matt Strahm. He has a 3.70 ERA with 29 strikeouts, and he's probably one of their clutchest pitchers. He's had 2 bad outings recently, but he is probably their best or second best reliever. He is their 8th inning guy. He's someone they can trust to hold it down, which is really all you want. And Jose Ruiz, he's pitched 14.1 innings with an 8.16 ERA and 12 strikeouts. He's kind of like their number 5. He's like not quite their mop-up, but they're not going to really use him in high-leverage situations. He's definitely got potential, but he hasn't really unlocked it yet. But I'm really hoping he can come into his own. But if he doesn't, he's got to cut down on the home runs. Going on to hitters, we're going to start with Kyle Schwarber, who's hitting .266 at .398 on-base percentage, 19 homers and 44 RBIs. He gets an A+. He has been so good with his average up. He's one of the most unstoppable players in the league. Especially if he can always contribute the power numbers, but he's bringing the average around 2. A+, highest rated player on the team. With Bryce Harper, he's hitting .267, 33 RBIs with 8 homers. He is dealing with injuries right now. Hopefully he can recover. He started off slow, but he's getting a lot better. He's obviously one of the clutchest players in the league. If he can recover, it will help the Phillies tremendously, as well as his recovery process. Now, for Max Kepler, he's hitting .222 with a .310 on-base percentage, 20 RBIs, 6 home runs, and 18 extra base hits. Now, he's been okay. He gets a C+. He's a 6 hitter. There's not really anything else that he can do. He's doing what is being asked. He's been a little below expectations, so he's been solid, but he's been a little below expectations, so that's why he gets a C+ instead of a B-. Now, defensively, he's one of the more solid left fielders. He doesn't do anything wrong, but he's solid. Now, Bohm's hitting .265 with 21 RBIs and 5 homers. He started off slow, but he's really picked it up. He gets a B mostly because his defense has gotten a lot better over the years, but it's still not great. It's not as bad as Turner, who we'll talk about later in this video. But if he continues to be solid, that will be good for the Phillies. Nick Castellanos is hitting .281 with 30 RBIs and 5 home runs. It may not seem like it, but he has the highest batting average on the Phillies, which is not good. Or no, second highest actually, behind Trey Turner. And he's a below-average fielder. He can get the balls that are hit around him. But he's been pretty solid this year. And he's been their solid 5 hitter. He's been hitting 4. Now the Harper's gone down, but let's hope he can keep it up. With JT Realmuto, his bat has not been very good this year, only hitting .223 with 22 RBIs and 5 home runs and only 14 extra base hits. But obviously his defense continues to be superb, and he's still a way better catcher than Marchand, but I don't see a world where the Phillies bring Realmuto back this year. I think they will look for another catcher, but he's been a good defensive catcher, but he hasn't really lived up to expectations at the plate. Turner is hitting .299 with 25 RBIs and 5 homers with 15 extra base hits. He would probably get an A+ with Schwarber if it wasn't for his fielding, which has been downright atrocious and has cost them a couple games, including costing them the Brewers game yesterday. So if he could turn that around, he could easily be the best player on this team. But his fielding will let the Phillies down and could let the Phillies down, especially if they're looking to go on a playoff run, which would not be good for the Phillies. Bryson Stott is hitting .254 with 4 home runs and 24 RBIs with an on-base percentage of .320. He's been a solid leadoff hitter. He's obviously always going to be a good fielder. He gets a B-. He's always going to be a good fielder. I feel like he can be a Gold Glover, but I don't think he's going to get much better. He's going to stay an above-average hitter, hopefully get that average to around .270. That's his peak, but he's always going to be a solid player, and he's being a solid player for the Phillies rotation right now as we speak. Moving on to Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh gets a D as he only has 7 extra base hits and he's only hitting .220, which is not very good with only 12 RBIs. He got a little bit better since he came back from the minor leagues dealing with his injury, but he was terrible beforehand, and he's only been okay since he's been back. The day the Phillies realized that they should not platoon Brandon Marsh and Johan Rojas and just start Johan Rojas and have Brandon Marsh be the backup is the day the Phillies will do better. But obviously Rob Thompson is not a competent manager, so that does change things. And with Rafael Marchand, obviously he's the backup. He's the backup for a reason. He's only hitting 143. He only has 1 homer with 5 RBIs, though he is a very solid defensive catcher. He's definitely a top 30 defensive catcher in the league. He's definitely a better defensive catcher than some of the starters. He's very impressive behind the plate. At the plate, he's okay, but if he can improve at the plate, he might be able to become the Phillies' everyday catcher next year. Going next to Johan Rojas, who is hitting .250 with 14 RBIs, a .306 on-base percentage with only 1 home run. But obviously, Rojas's main reason he's on the team is because of his defense, and his hitting has been better than Brandon Marsh's this year, and his fielding is obviously better than Brandon Marsh. He gets an A-. Johan Rojas has been probably one of the most important players to the Phillies this year, except Rob Thompson doesn't realize that, which is a shame because he is a really good player. With Edmundo Sosa, he's been playing a lot more since Harper's gone. He's hitting .294, 13 RBIs with a .337 on-base percentage and home run. He gets an A because he probably has been I would say he's the most valuable player to the Phillies. He can play anywhere in the infield except first base, and he's hitting nearly 300, and he fills in, and he does well whenever he needs to be played. And he should probably be an everyday starter, but he can't be, so he will be someday. And with Weston Wilson, he hasn't played that much because he's dealt with injuries. He's only hitting 179, but he only has 3 hits all year with 3 RBIs and 1 home run, so it's kind of hard to judge. So he will get a C by default. He's an okay player, and we'll see if he can improve.